This is the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show here on the New Horizon Radio.
Welcome to the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show. A little bit about me. My favourite colour is pink, hence the reason I'm wearing pink head to toe today. I hate snakes, more of this later, and I try to meditate every day. On today's show, I review my day out at Bletchley Park, had a trip to the ballet to see Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake, a fashion disaster on the Apprentice, and snakes in my house. And my guests are Steve Clark and Emma D from Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy. And I'm trying something a little bit different today because I'm doing this show standing up. So I'm going to see if I end up being less hot. And last week I was fortunate enough to go to Bletchley Park. I had my whole family together, which was the first time in a long time. My mum and dad hadn't seen each other for 27 years, which was an amazing reunion. My mum lives in Israel and hasn't been in the UK for 2 years for obvious reasons. My dad lives up in Scotland. So it was lovely to have everyone together. My brother came down from Glastonbury with my nephew, whom I'd not seen for a while either. So it was a proper family reunion. And we thought we'd go to Bletchley Park because my parents are of that age where it's really interesting. And I hadn't been to Bletchley Park in a very long time. Both parents are in their 80s. So, they were very young when the war started. So my dad has very, very vague memories of, the broadcasting, etc. that was going on. So he was fascinated. He'd never been. Mum had been before. They were brilliant with wheelchair access. Mum and dad shared wheelchair access. They didn't actually share the wheelchair. That would have looked very odd, but they took it in turns, which was great. And it's very, very wheelchair friendly, I have to say. Very dog friendly, very wheelchair friendly. And we could not have picked better weather. It was the most amazing day weather-wise. It was just absolutely fabulous. So we booked on a guided tour, which was free, which was great because actually sometimes when you go to a tourist attraction, you have to, you pay to get in and then you have to pay for the tour, which I think is an absolute rip-off. If you paid your entrance fee, it should include that. But the tour was included and it was amazing. And we had a brilliant tour guide called Neil. And I'm definitely going to get one of the volunteers on my show at some point because they are so interesting. And, we have this amazing historic attraction on our doorstep, and as residents in Milton Keynes we get 50% discount. It's just a no-brainer, so it was wonderful. So anyway, I digress. So fantastic tour guide, and we started off one of the huts, which would have been typical for where most of the women worked. Obviously the men were away at war, and 75% of the women, 75% of the workforce were women. So as I said, because the men were away at war. So Bletchley Park, for those of you who don't know, was the top secret home of the World War II code breakers, and it's now a vibrant heritage attraction open daily. There's immersive films, interactive displays, museum collections, and they've faithfully recreated World War II rooms, which will guide you on a journey to discover the past, and it really does feel like you're going back in time. The exhibitions are amazing and they're set within beautifully restored historic buildings, and they tell the story of the Swan's secret operation. Find out more about the brilliant minds and complex machines that made this vital work possible and discover the global impact that Bletchley Park had on World War II. We cannot actually thank the academics and all the people that were recruited, by the Secret Service, what's called GCHQ now, to join and to do the code breaking. And obviously, we all know about Alan Turing, and there's a statue there, as it quite rightly said. But there's so much more to Bletchley Park than Alan Turing. It was a collective. There were so many people working there over this period of time during the Second World War, and it's just when you walk in, it's just this feeling of it's just very special, and it's very hard to imagine that that nobody else knew about it. So if you were working in one hut, nobody in if you're in hut 1, hut 2 weren't allowed to know what you were up to because of secrecy, and very few people knew about it because obviously it had to be top secret, and it was away from London, which was obviously going to be bombed. So this is why this particular property was purchased by the Leon family, and it's just an amazing an estate, really. It's beautiful. The mansion house is amazing. You go in and it's just the Gothic sort of architecture, but there's a mixture of architecture, really, really fascinating. We absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think the fact that there were ages in our party, certainly ranging from sort of 88 to 20, just shows how absolutely fascinating it is. And there's something there for absolutely everybody. Another great thing about it, you just don't, this doesn't happen. Your ticket is valid for 12 months. So you can go back. I'm going to go back with a friend, and she wants to go. And next time we're going to have afternoon tea. That's definitely my plan in the Mansion House, because it is absolutely beautiful. But Bletchley Park, for those of you who live in Milton Keynes, it's so worth a visit. And if you don't, it's you can get there via train from London, sort of 40 minutes. So Bletchley Park is absolutely the most amazing tourist attraction on our doorstep, steeped in history. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Swan Lake. What an absolute privilege that I got to celebrate, which I feel like I'm part of the celebrations of the 30th anniversary of Matthew Bourne's cutting edge, groundbreaking Swan Lake. And I know it probably seems quite normal now to have an entire male ensemble, but 30 years ago everybody was talking about it. But anyway, Swan Lake has come back to Milton Keynes Theatre and is touring the rest of the country, as I say, part of the UK tour. This groundbreaking production of Tchaikovsky's masterpiece caused a sensation, as I say, when it premiered almost 30 years ago, and has since become the most successful dance production of all time. In celebration of that ongoing impact, Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake will take flight once more, flight like a swan, in this major revival, as the next generation of dancers bring it to new audiences across the UK. Making their debuts, honestly, of some of these dancers, just jaw-dropping. Jackson Fish as the Swan, the power, the athleticism in his body and his movement, and the fact that he just embodies, well, they all do, embodies the swan. And I can't actually even imagine how we didn't have male dancers as swans, because the sheer physicality and the athleticism, when they get up like this, and the muscles on their backs and their arms, everything is just so swan-like. It's just absolutely extraordinary. So, as I say, Jackson Fish is amazing. James Lovell as the prince, he portrays that vulnerability and honestly just so sad. He's just, he's desperately trying to get his mother's attention, and she's being sort of courted by lots of men, and she's very cold and very aloof. And she's played, as I say, the lady who plays her is Nicole Cabera, who's just got this icy aloofness. So I think it's reminiscent of Vanessa Williams, actually, in The Devil Wears Prada. She's just got that whole kind of vibe about her. Katrina Linden as the girlfriend, who's this gauche, unsophisticated girl who's trying to win the prince's affection, and she's just doing everything wrong, and she's a little bit tarty, and she's just got no idea of decorum and sort of social graces, and everybody in the palace is just up in arms at her behavior. She's not a bad person, she's just trying to kind of get his attention. But the dynamic is incredible. The way the cast work together, you just feel so in it. And for ballet, and it's, to be honest with you, it doesn't even feel like a ballet. And Matthew Bourne has said, he finds it hard to believe that our Swan Lake is now 30 years old, and it's even harder to acknowledge that we are now casting most swans and princesses who were not even born at the time of the show's premiere. And a lot of his New Adventures dancers are now actually part of his, sort of dance captains team, etc. So everyone's involved. It seems like a really cohesive unit. Many dancers have grown up with this production and dreaming one day of dancing in it. So he says he's particularly excited to announce this lineup of young dancers. And many of the dancers have actually been nurtured through the talent development programs at New Adventures, notably Swan School, which I think is a brilliant name. Who doesn't want to go to Swan School? I know, he says, I know from experience what a life-changing experience the show has been for previous casts and how it has inspired new audiences for dance throughout the world. And he says he's truly thrilled to welcome the next generation of swans and swan watchers as we celebrate 3 decades of Swan Lake. I find Matthew Bourne's story absolutely fascinating as well. He only started dancing when he was 22. He came to dance really late. So even though he loved musical theatre, he actually didn't actually take up dancing until he was 22, which practically is over the hill for a dancer. You're almost you're going into your first job at 22, really, just coming out of college. So to do what he's done and to have this, he's such a visionary, as he's definitely one of the world's greatest choreographers, and his love of musical theatre shines through, because it never feels like a ballet. It feels like it is an actual musical experience. It is extraordinary, but it's thrilling, it's bold, it's witty. I find it quite whimsical at times, but it is a genre-defying event, as I say, best known for replacing the female corps de ballet with a menacing male Swan ensemble, and they really are incredible. It shattered convention and turned tradition on its head, but now, as I say, it feels like it should have always been like this. It first staged at Sadler's Wells in 1995, and we're very lucky to have it here in Milton Keynes, and as I say, touring. And I also just have to say that I'm a huge fan of Les Brotherston, who does costume and set design. He works with Matthew Bourne in the New Adventures Company, and the costumes are always, I love a costume. Obviously, I'm into fashion, and I love everything about this production. It's sumptuous, the set, the scenery, it's just incredible. I had to hold back tears at the end. It was utterly moving. And that if dance can inspire that kind of emotion, well, that is entertainment. And The Apprentice is nearing its final. Can you believe it? And what am I going to talk about? I'm sure I'll find some other things to talk about. What I did want to talk about, actually, I'm digressing slightly, is the White Lotus. But I'm very aware that lots of people don't have Sky Max, but it has been the water cooler conversation. So if you can access it, I don't know, pay for a sort of subscription for these amazing 8 episodes of mind-boggling television, it is so worth it. Mike White's writing is insane. You watch it and you think, is anything happening? But it's so carefully nuanced, and the characters, it's messed up, but it sets the scene for what happens at the end, and it is quite the finale, I have to say. So if you can access Sky Max, it is really, really worth a watch. And the breakout star is Amy Lou Wood, whom I'm an absolute huge fan of. She was in Adolescence as well, which has been recommissioned for a second series, which I think is brilliant. So she's just an amazing actress. I'm such a big fan. And Patrick Schwarzenegger, clue in the surname, is being touted as being the next James Bond. Such was his amazing performance in White Lotus. So watch the space, but it is a cracking watch. Utterly bonkers. But anyway, talking of bonkers, The Apprentice, oh my goodness me. They had to design, the candidates had to design their own fashion brand, which obviously I thought would be quite interesting. So Liam was up for project manager and he said, on the outside, I have a fashion brand. I don't know why he's saying the outside, because I know The Apprentice is tough, but it's not, you're not in prison. So he kept saying on the outside. Maybe that's what it feels like when you've been incarcerated in that luxury mansion in London for 3 months. Boo-hoo, my heart bleeds. Anyway, the teams were designing an eco brand, were asked what the story was, and apparently, clothes need to tell a story. Who knew? The fact is that it's an eco brand was enough, apparently. The other team decided to design athleisure. Why? I have no idea. Lockdown ended 3 years ago. Athleisure is not really a thing anymore. We all got sick of leggings. That's all we wore for 3 or 4 years when the world shut down. So I don't know why they particularly wanted to do this. That particular fashion ship has sailed. And the pronunciation of athleisure was driving me insane. You all know what a stickler I am for pronunciation. They were saying athleisure. We're not American. It's athleisure. We say leisure. We say leisure centre. We don't say leisure centre. So that was annoying me. But Liam was not happy at all because he had been chosen. And Jordan, who had no experience, was chosen as project manager. And Mia, of course, took over and wanted to design a dress for men. Liam was really, really unhappy. He had a face like a wet weekend. But she completely railroaded Jordan into designing a dress, which was so utterly hideous, nobody would wear it. Chizola, God bless her, designed yoga pants. Again, which is foolish. Why would you design yoga pants? The market is absolutely saturated with the likes of Sweaty Betty, Lululemon, etc., etc. You can just go into TK Maxx and buy a pair of leggings. They're nothing special. But anyway, she wanted her yoga pants to have a scrunch bum. Who knew what a scrunch bum was? Apparently everyone loves one. I never knew what a scrunch bum was, but you learn something new every day. The brands were named Express Up and Space Apparel. And even though the task was about recycling, Express Up logo looked like a budget petrol station, and Apparel, because of the gap, looked like an art project designed by kids. And the project manager Chizola had specifically said, I want no typography because it looks juvenile. I wanted to look really, really sophisticated. What did they do? Typography. It looked awful, absolutely dreadful. So the fashion team were designing, the jacket became a cape, and Mia was banging on about breaking societal norms, and Liam had to wear floral earmuffs, adding insult to injury. He was absolutely fuming, had his face like a smacked arse. It was shocking. So Mia's trying to push these boundaries and trying to be sort of really cutting edge. And nobody was really up for it, but Jordan did as he was told, because what Mia wanted, Mia got. Anyway, feedback when they went to get the feedback from the general public was that the scrunch bum looked like a butthole. So that was never, ever going to sort of take off. And so Jordan and his Technicolor Dreamcoat lost as it was simply too niche. Liam sulked and was justifiably fired. The interviews were last week, and as per usual, they were brutal. Holes were found in their business plans, and numbers were crunched and didn't add up. Chizola and Amber Rose were fired, as was Jordan, but only after Lord Sugar gave him his business card and said, "Please stay in touch. I think you're amazing. I just think you're too young." Never in the history of The Apprentice has this happened. So that was quite an emotional moment because he's only 21 when it's filmed. So big display, big gesture. He has my business card, stay in touch. I think you're amazing. I just think it's the wrong time. So that was amazing. So he was fired, but not really fired. So I think he'll go far. He's just got the gift of the gab and he's very authentic. So it's air conditioning salesman Dean and Indian pizza maker Anissa in the final two. And the reason I think that they are there in the final two is because they have existing and established businesses. I'm going to be doing a little bit about my life story, which is what I started last week. So last week's childhood story has proved to be very popular, actually. Who knew? Anyway, so as promised, here is my snake story. And that's not a euphemism for anything, so just clear your dirty minds. As I mentioned, we lived in a house in the bush in rural Rhodesia, and snakes were commonplace. Scorpions were rife too, and we had a thatched roof, and so you had to make sure that when you got into bed that, there were no scorpions coming down on top of you, and you had to turn your shoes upside down at night, or when you did put your shoes on in the morning, you had to just check for scorpions. So scorpions were a very viable thing. There were always things trying to kill you in Africa. They really, really were. But snakes presented the biggest challenge. So we'd be sitting on the veranda eating lunch, and my dad would have a rake next to him, and he'd just, a snake would come up whilst we were trying to eat our casual lunch. He'd hit it over the head with a rake, and the snake would be just doing its thing without its head, which was just disgusting. Oh, horrendous. So I've got really bad visions with, sort of memories of that, actually. But the worst one, the two worst occasions, can you believe it? And it does sound like I'm making this up. I promise you I'm not. Was I was sitting on the couch, and my dad said to me, there's a snake under the couch. I need to kill it. So I couldn't obviously move off the couch because, the snake would have got me. And when we say snake, I don't mean just like a little grass snake. I mean, it's a cobra. And the clue would suggest that, spitting cobra will spit in your eye and kill you, or blind you at the very least. So, as I say, we're not talking tiny snakes. So whilst I'm sitting on the couch, Dad has to lie on the floor with a shotgun and shoot the snake. I kid you not. Utterly terrifying when you're only 4 years old. So that couch had a lot of stories. But the other story was, again, there was a snake in the house. I think this time it was a puff adder. Again, hugely, hugely venomous. There's no coming back from a bite from one of these. So just really, really nasty. And again, you could always sense when there was a snake in the house because the dogs would go absolutely mad. So he said, go to your room. And I went to my bedroom, and he locked me in the room, and then realized the snake was in the bedroom with me. And fortunately, I was a very disobedient child. I climbed out the window and was doing whatever I was doing. And then my dad realized that the snake was in the bedroom. Thank God I was disobedient, because I would not be here regaling you of my crazy upbringing in Africa had I stayed in the bedroom. They just, it would have been Nancy Nilpois and snake, that would have been it. So snakes in the house. So more stories to come. Next week, I'm going to be talking about going off to boarding school. And stay tuned. I'm talking to my wonderful guests, Steve Clark and Emma D of Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy. Steve Clark has been writing plays, probably longer than he remembers actually, adapting TV sitcoms for the stage, performing and directing for many years, having played roles such as Basil Fawlty. I have to say, John Cleese, watch out. Outstanding performance. Officer Crabtree, the mispronunciation in A Policeman in Allo Allo, absolute classic as well, and Hugo Horton in The Vicar of Dibley in Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy's past productions. He co-wrote and is directing this Brittas Empire adaptation. Emma Dale has a background in TV and film production and has been involved in many Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy productions, including directing their last show, The Vicar of Dibley, in November 2024. She co-wrote the script for Brittas and plays the role of neurotic wife Helen Brittas. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Good morning. Hello. Hi.
It's so lovely to have you on. So excited. So firstly, a bit of context. So I came to your Whose Turn Is It Anyway night the other week, and I was like, I'd forgotten. I'd been in the wilderness for a few years, let's just say, from a relationship perspective, and I'd dropped out of the entertainment world. But coming back to see how brilliant you guys were, honestly, I always say, and it's disgusting, I always say it's a tenor lady moment when you come to your shows, because they are so, so funny. Your face is aching with laughter afterwards, and I think the whole idea of being able to improv the way you guys do is mind-blowing. So I'm always in awe of people who can make people laugh, because it's something, I think comedy is the hardest art form, personally. I'd
agree, and we've been doing comedy stuff in Milton Keynes for a long time. We've got a great group of people who work with us who've had lots of experience, both professional and amateur, and you're right, we've done some fantastic shows with us, staged, rehearsed and scripted shows, and then the Whose Turn is our improvised comedy show, which is just using the suggestions from the audience, and we have no idea what's going to come out of the actors' mouths, and it's very good fun.
It's utterly righteous, and it's not for the easily offended, I have to say.
No.
Yeah, I did see, when I was there a couple of weeks ago, I did see two girls walk out next to me. I thought, this is obviously too near to the knuckle for you, but everybody else was just absolutely roaring with laughter. Just a brilliant night out. I said, you do it twice a year, and it's so worth it. And also in terms of entertainment, £12 for a night out like that.
Oh yeah, it's good value, and we're obviously conscious that getting to go and see good comedy, locally, there's not that many opportunities, so we want to present as many good opportunities as possible and at good prices. Absolutely
do. So tell us what the aim of, obviously the title is on the tin, MK Theatre of Comedy, but what was the aim, and how, whose idea was this in the first place?
So originally came from one of our colleagues, Dave Pibworth, who's still very actively involved in what we're doing, and there's a small clique who run the group, and we decide what's going on next, and schedule things, but we wanted to do comedy. We wanted to do fun stuff, which doesn't necessarily mean we're dictated by a membership. We don't have a membership of our group. We form for each of our shows, but we have people that we invite along or involve from the local area. So we're not driven by, we've got to do shows which have 50 people because we've got 50 members. So we can do shows with just 2 or 3 people in if we want to, or we do slightly bigger shows. Brittas, which we're doing next month, or the end of this month, has got a cast of about 24, which is a fairly good size, but we've done other shows with just 3 or 4 people in. So we're not dictated by that, which is great. Other groups are.
And I do various things. Yes. But I'd say our USP is doing sitcoms.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's our USP. But we have done many sketch shows, and obviously you just said the improv as well.
And pantomimes and things like that.
And pantomimes, and
but certainly over the years we've sort of moved into this niche area of adapting and staging popular sitcoms, both radio and TV sitcoms, partly because it's other groups are doing other things, and we want to sort of be easily identifiable. But actually, there's so much really good material out there, and it's so funny, and our audiences really, I think, really enjoy coming and seeing things that they've seen on the television, but presented in a slightly different light. It's obviously never going to be exactly the same as a TV series, otherwise you might as well just watch the TV series. But people really enjoy it, and they know what they're coming to expect. They know what they're expecting and what they're going to get. So.
And we try to keep it as close as possible to what the sitcoms are, but again, you have to adapt them to stage. And obviously, what you can put on TV, you can put anything you like, really. But it's not the same for stage, so you have to know what you're doing to adapt it. And there might be certain scenes in a show that you just can't put on stage. So yeah,
it's so exciting, and as you say, you're always choosing. In my opinion, you always choose an absolute blinder. So the Brittas Empire. I mean, this was a beloved sitcom, but this is the first adaptation, I understand. So this is very exciting.
Yeah. So obviously, it was very popular in the 1990s. It's had audiences of up to 10 million, so it was a good show. It ran for 7 series originally, and it's something I've always enjoyed. I remember watching it when it first came out, and as I say, we've done lots of other things, and we thought, this is another one which we can have a go at. I contacted the original writers, who were delighted to be contacted, and said, well, yes, of course, if you'd like to have a go. And they've been really, really supportive and very generous in their time, giving ideas, making suggestions, but they've given us, both Emma and I, fairly free rein to do what we really wanted with it in terms of which bits we wanted to stage and how we would put it together.
They've been really good, really proactive and very positive about our work as well.
You know, feedback on the script and have you thought about that, or we like that, but this sort of thing. And so we've then adapted the script. There's a copy of the script there, very exciting. We are we've been rehearsing since beginning of February. So we don't tend to have very long rehearsal periods. We tend to be short and sharp, partly because we've got very talented people who can pick things up very, very quickly.
And also, people have busy lives. You know, people have lives. They have busy lives. But as you say, the talent. You know, if you've got the talent and kind of that sort of intuition that you've worked together, you kind of know how each other is going to react to certain things. I think you're just going to naturally slot into it. So yeah, I'm really interested to hear a little bit more about why you chose the Brittas Empire. So I have a badge here. I'm very excited. It says, "I've been to Whitbury Leisure Centre and swum in the poo." And then if you want to know closer, it's a pool, isn't it? Because it is a bit rubbish, isn't it? So
it's one of the jokes actually in the play, and we've done those for promotional reasons. But yes, Brittas has produced 5,000 of these badges, but misprinted them. So obviously
in fact, there's a joke that goes along with that, because when we sent them to the printers, the printer kept correcting them and putting pool. So Steve had to keep phoning them up and saying, "No, you've done it right. We want it wrong." And they were like, and then they go, "Oh, okay." And then
cannot compute.
And then they'd make it right again. Yeah. no, we want it to say, but the L's round the edge. Yes,
that's the whole point.
Yes, we know.
So I mean, for those people who aren't familiar with the Brittas Empire or need some reminding from what it was about in the 1990s, it's set in a leisure centre, a fictional leisure centre called Whitbury Newtown Leisure Centre. We're even wearing our special shirts today. And it's managed by this chap called Gordon Brittas, who in the original series was played by Chris Barry, who of Red Dwarf fame. And he's a very well-meaning chap. He's very nice, but he's just incompetent, basically. He's very different. It's almost like a Basil Fawlty character, but he's not malicious.
Yes.
Basil Fawlty can be quite...
I think Dave Pipworth said he was a bit like Frank Spencer.
Yes.
He's more... There's
well-meaning.
Trouble everywhere he goes, but he's actually got a good heart.
Yeah.
Whereas Basil Fawlty doesn't like anyone.
No. And so he's surrounded by this team, which he's very proud of, but actually most of them don't like him and find him incredibly frustrating. And the TV series was famous for lots of stunts and lots of explosions and disastrous things happening. We're doing some of that sort of stuff on what we can do, coming back to Emma's comment earlier, what you can do on stage safely. But it's surrounded by other brilliant characters. There's a Carol, who's the receptionist, who keeps her baby in a drawer under the reception. There's his wife Helen, who's been played by Emma, who's fairly neurotic and sort of takes drugs,
likes
drinks,
her pills,
and
likes
everything
her
else.
alcohol.
Yeah. Any distraction to keep her away from the depression that's caused by being married to Gordon. and so there's some brilliant characters in it, and so we felt it was something which needs to be brought back to the stage again and done and shown to a new audience, because it's not something which is necessarily repeated very much on the TV channels. You can get it on some of the streaming channels, but it's not the sort of thing where you turn on Dave at 10:30 and whatever, and it's broadcasting. So yeah.
Absolutely, and I think it's something I'm going to have to rewatch actually, just to sort of refresh my memory before I come and watch the show, because I am looking forward to it, and but I just, as you say, I remember. I think the reason I probably stopped watching, because I just find him so utterly frustrating.
There is an element of that, because you do think, and one of the beauties of it is a bit like the same sort of comedy as Fawlty Towers, where you can just see he's doing something. It's quite well-meaning, but you just know what's going to happen as a result of it, and so you can almost, you're seeing ahead, casting ahead as to what disaster is going to happen, and that's part of the fun of watching it all unfurl as you expect it to happen.
And
I think that adapts really well to stage, actually.
Yeah.
Almost better than TV, because visually it's fantastic, and how we've produced it is to have almost no sort of scene cuts. It's just flowing all the way through, so you can almost see things building up from one room to the next right in front of your eyes. So.
Yeah. So our set is a sort of composite set of the leisure centre, where you can see different rooms, and you'll see people in different rooms starting to interact with one another and the action moving across with lighting and things. So it's going to be quite fun to see that happening.
Amazing. And Emma, obviously this sounds like a cracking role for you to play. She just sounds, why have they cast you in this particular role?
I think as we wrote it, it just became natural.
Yeah.
I kind of just, as we were writing, Steve and I had to watch a lot of Brittas, and like you say, to catch up. I mean, there's some we've never seen before. I didn't realise that. How many episodes are there?
There's about 50 episodes or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 7 series. So
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought there were only a few seasons, but there aren't. So we watched a lot of them, and then as we got writing, we'd have to sit together and read every single character to each. So I kind of fell in love with Helen during that time.
And I guess for you as an actor, that must be really fun to play someone who is loose of moral and loose of tongue and just completely a loose cannon, basically.
It's great, and she's got some, as our lead role, Rob, who's playing Brittas, he pointed out to me the other day, she's got some lines that are cracking lines.
Yep. There's some great, almost like throwaway lines, which you really laugh at because it's just her resignation of life, or just sort of whatever, and it's brilliant.
I worked on her voice. I have to go a lot low. She hasn't got a low voice, but her voice comes from very low diaphragm. So I worked on her voice, and I think I've cracked that.
You're a trained actor, darling. I'm sure you'll smash it. And Steve, you're directing this time. Now, I've seen you act. You're an extraordinary actor. Was it a
very
hard?
Kind of you to say so.
No, it's a pleasure. You really are. I mean, I'd say your Basil Fawlty was, almost as good as John Cleese. It was phenomenal, and I loved you in a lower. Only two of those.
Good moaning,
but yes, but was it a tough decision not to be in the show and to direct?
A little bit of one, but actually, what I really wanted on this one, I had a clear vision about how I wanted it to be done, and Emma and I worked on the script, and so I can be an absolute pain if I've got ideas and I'm not in control. It sounds a bit OCD, but in this particular thing, this particular time, I thought if I'm directing it, then I know it's going to go the way I want it to be, and I've got a very clear idea of how it's going to happen, and also we've got a brilliant cast, and we found Rob played the part of Harry when we did Vicar of Dibley last year, the handsome stranger who marries Geraldine, and did a fantastic job on that, and he was great for this role as well. So I'm all in favour of getting the best people to be doing the best roles. So I'm probably best suited to direct this. Rob was really good to be acting in this, so that has worked really well.
And I think that's why Milton Keynes Theatre Comedy is so successful, because for me it seems very collaborative. It feels quite democratic. It doesn't feel very cliquey, because it seems like everyone does, take it in turns, as it were, and you're utilising everyone's talents, accordingly, not because, there's other groups who shall remain nameless who just always cast the same people and not necessarily suited. And I find that really frustrating. It feels very cliquey.
We definitely have it's very clear we want the best people for the role to make sure it's the best show possible. And actually this particular production, as I say, we invite people to come along, we sometimes audition. This particular one, we had like an open audition session where we invited people to come along, we did some reading through, and then we made some decisions from that. And we were delighted. We had a lot of new faces come forward. So, we're not trying to be cliquey or anything like that. So in the cast, nearly half the cast are people who haven't been in an MK Talk show before, which I think is brilliant. And they've been enthusiastic. It's been great fun to work with them. They've been bringing us a bit, their ideas to the show. And the way I direct as well, it's not, although I like to be in control, I like to encourage suggestions from people. So when we're doing a scene, I've got an idea how I'd like it to run. But if people have say, wouldn't it be good if we did this, or how about doing that, or why don't we add this extra bit of visual comedy in? Ultimately, there has to be someone who decides, let's do it or not, rather than an endless debate, because otherwise it's anarchy. But there's been lots of points in the show where people have come up with some new funny bits. Oh no, that doesn't really quite work, in terms of the way we're standing or whatever. And it's been great to have that, hasn't it, in terms of going through. And it means the rehearsals it's not just everyone being told what to do. People are all contributing to it, and they are all adding their own value and own ideas to the show, which makes it so much fun to do.
Must have been fun casting with new blood, and there is so much talent in Milton Keynes. it's great because, as you say, it is very collaborative. It doesn't feel like it's the same people over and over again, and for us as the viewer, it's lovely to see
that's the
new
thing as
faces.
well.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fresh.
It's great to have. There are clearly people who are very great, and it would be madness not to include them because they're fantastic. But it's nice to have a mixture of new faces. And I say some of the people we've got have come from other groups who have performed with other groups. Some are new to the area, so haven't really performed in the area before. And there's at least 2 members of the cast who approached and said we'd like to be in it, but they've never done any acting before. So they are new to the stage. They're slightly nervous about it all, but we're supporting them, and that's great. But what we did with this, we've got the main characters, but we've also got an ensemble of about 7 or 8 people who they appear lots of times as different members of staff, or they've got a couple of lines here, or they're a victim of some accident or whatever, and it means that they're given an opportunity to appear on stage and do something and have a bit of a laugh with it. But it's just giving those extra opportunities, and it means it makes it a sort of, although the leisure centre's never supposed to be that busy because no one ever comes to the leisure centre, but it means we've got some extra bodies to fill some scenes when we need them.
And it's also giving, someone who, I was saying to you off air, I can't, acting is not for me. I can do this because I'm me, but assuming a persona, I just can't do. Yeah. So I think, as I say, if you've never acted before, to be sort of broken in gently with a few lines is a great way to do it. But another thing I just wanted to ask was that, genuine funny bones, is it something you can teach, or do you just have to be born, with funny bones?
I don't know if you're born with it, but that you can't teach it. I used to think you could when I was younger, and I went through drama school and things, but you can't. It's like delivering a joke. Someone might tell you a joke and you go away and you repeat it and nobody laughs, and you think, why did no one laugh? Everyone was rolling around earlier. So it's a lot to do with timing.
Yeah.
And I think some people just don't get it, because you could do a part or a scene and you could see the same person and tell them to do it this way and do it that way, and they just can't do it because they don't have that time in just naturally. So what do you think?
I agree with you completely. I think there's something innate inside people. To be honest, in good performers generally, whether it's comedy or not, they've got to have a bit of an edge of some sort. And with this sort of show, you can, as Emma says, you can deliver a line, and I could do it differently to you, and you get a completely different reaction.
You do it better than me, trust me.
No, because it's the way that the timing, the inflection on things, and the key thing about doing live shows with an audience is being able to work with the audience as well. So there will be audience reaction. I mean, obviously we rehearse without audience reaction. It's always a bit of a whoa on the first night when people start laughing at things, and we found, having done shows for many years, every audience is different, and you think you've got it. They're going to laugh at that bit. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes it's actually because you haven't delivered it as well as you the other time. But other times it's just the audience are on a different wavelength, and they're looking at, they might be more for the visual stuff or more for the spoken word, and they're not interested in the visuals. And it can matter about who you've got in the audience. It can sometimes matter what night it is. Friday nights tend to be very much, we've finished the working week, we're here to be entertained, come on, entertain us. Some other nights are different. Saturday nights often is all the cast's friends and family come along, so the last night sometimes, and they tend to be a sort of very much, very different audience as well. And all of that, reacting to the audience and pausing for the laughter and not carrying on with a line when it's been, lost in laughter is so important, because otherwise the show doesn't work.
Absolutely, which is why I think it's good to have the opportunity, like Steve was saying, to do the extra parts and the ensemble, because you get a taste and get to understand it isn't about you. You might be a great actor and really funny, but if you haven't been on stage and learned about that timing with the audience and with the characters around you, because when it's live, anything can happen. Yeah. So you've got to be able to roll with it, and you've got to be able to read the room, if you like.
Absolutely. It's the way you tell them, isn't it? And I wanted to ask you who your comedy heroes are. And I know that's a big question, because I think comedy has evolved. But fundamentally, do we prefer older to new? Emma?
Well, I love the two Ricks. My all-time, lifetime favourite comedian was Rick Mayall, who sadly died far too young, and so I can't talk about his comedy now because he doesn't exist, but I think his work is timeless, a bit wacky. And my other favourite is Ricky Gervais, another Rick. And again, I don't think time has really stopped him with his comedy either. He still sticks to the really sort of edgy stuff, which I love.
I was going to say, I mean, Ricky Gervais he really doesn't care. And Rick Mail was definitely the same. They've definitely...
So there must be a theme going on here in my particular comedy.
Probably very different styles of comedy, but with the same sort of attitude of comedy is comedy, and it doesn't matter, people should laugh and enjoy it. That's the key thing.
Absolutely. And I think Ricky Gervais hosting the Oscars was the best hosting ever, because he roasted all those precious little Hollywood.
It was brilliant.
It was classic, and it was
he did it for the people, for us, rather than pampering to the people that are sat there in their little bubble. He literally did it for us. And do you know what? I still watch it now. I watch that on repeat.
It's genius.
It makes me laugh every single time.
I totally agree with you. I loved Rick Mail as well. He was genius, and I loved the young ones. He just, that irreverent, wacky, off-centre was just phenomenal comedy.
There were lines from the young ones that my brother and I still use today. And Ricky was saying about the Oscars. I've watched that particular one over and over and over, as if it were a great movie, and I still laugh at it every single time. I laugh every single time. It was fantastic because all the audience was sat there in their bubble of thinking they're so amazing, and he was speaking directly to the people who are watching it, the people that make that happen. So I'm with you.
Not pandering to them, just as you say, talking to us as viewers, and it was just classic comedy. And Steve, who are your comedy heroes?
Well, I grew up in the sort of 70s and 80s watching all those sort of the Two Ronnies, Monty Python, all the original Blackadders, all those, and Two Ronnies, everything. I mean, I love comedy of all sorts. I've really got into the sitcom genre, and I really love those, and obviously we've done lots of those, and I'm actually continuing to contact some of this is one wonderful thing about adapting these sorts of things, when you're tracking down the original writers and then starting up a dialogue with these people. So one of the other projects I've got on the boiler, on the back burner, is to do something on One Foot in the Grave. So David Renwick, I've written to him, I've had correspondence with him, and he's given us permission to do that as well. So being having watched these things for years and loved these things for years, being able to get in contact with some of these amazing writers who've created this stuff, and then being able to use their material when we're doing our stage shows is amazing. So, yeah. That's
a real privilege. But who, if you had to, I know you can't, it's like choosing your favourite child, if you had to choose two of your favourite...
Two. I mean, I loved Peter Cook. Again, that's another sort of almost unfiltered comedian who was, again, in terms of his life, it's probably such a wasted talent, because he had so many issues with himself and not able to necessarily do everything he could do. So he was amazing. And I really love Michael Palin as well. Partly because for his Python days, but also I love the comedy he brings and the humour he brings to the travel stuff he's done. And we've done some work from Michael Palin. He's given us permission to do Ripping Yarns in the past. So yeah.
And meeting your comedy heroes, I mean, has that ever happened? And did you properly fangirl?
Well, it did. I've in a previous role, a work role, I was lucky to have lunch with John Cleese. We were giving, he got I win.
You do.
He was receiving an honorary degree at the Open University, and I was working for them and had lunch with him. And that was amazing to sit having a surreal conversation over lunch about Monty Python's Life of Brian. We also, at the same lunch, Colin Firth was there as well. So I had this surreal conversation with him and John Cleese about stuttering in movies, because obviously Colin Firth has been in the King's Speech. And John Cleese had obviously done Fish Called Wanda, and so yeah, that was a bit of a pinch moment. Am I actually here? So and meeting a comedy great like John Cleese was quite incredible.
That's absolutely.
I have met Rick Mail.
Oh, and did he live up to expectation? Because sometimes they don't, and that's terribly disappointing. They say never meet your heroes.
Absolutely, 100% met every expectation. He was hilarious. I ran up to him, and I had my husband with me, and asked if I could have a hug and a photo, and he basically grabbed hold of me and bent me backwards and gave me a screen kiss in front of my husband.
Amazing.
And he was lovely, really, really fun. He was actually here doing Alan Bastard. Do you remember that?
Yes, a New Statesman. Oh my God, I love that
that's
show.
What we could do on stage as well.
I think we could do Alan Bastard, yeah.
That would be brilliant. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so I was, and I'm one of those people that I don't get starstruck at all. But that, he was wonderful. He's very funny.
How exciting again that that you're able to talk to these people because of what you do, and it's such a what a privilege. And I bet sort of if you said you look back at your younger self, think, God, I would never have expected you met John Cleese, and you would have written, never in a million years, and how amazing. What an incredible story. So we're going to talk just after this. We're going to talk a little bit about the Brittas Empire, a little bit more, and how we can find out how to book, why you should come and see it, and just how amazing Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy is. Welcome back to the last bit of the Nancy Stephens Lifestyle Show, where I'm joined by Steve Clark and Emma D of Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy, and you're doing the Brittas Empire. I'm wearing the badge now, badge of honour.
Excellent.
29th of April to the 3rd of May at Stantonbury. Tell us why we should come and see it, and how we can find about tickets, and
Okay, so it's a great show. Those of you who remember the TV series, that's what we're creating, recreating. If you haven't ever watched the TV series, as I said earlier, this is a very funny show set in a leisure centre with a dysfunctional manager and a team who are doing their best to keep chaos from descending on the place. We've got a great cast, lots of local, really, really good talents, people you've seen in the previous shows, and some new talent as well. It's going to be a fun evening out for anyone.
And it's family friendly.
Family friendly as well. Yep.
Any age can enjoy it.
Yep.
Like Steve says, even if you don't know the show, come and see, because you'll still laugh. It's for all ages.
Yep. No swearing.
And it's quite interesting as well, I think, for younger people to see what sort of comedy was on in the late 80s, early 90s, and give them an idea, because we haven't changed the comedy. It's still the same. So it's quite interesting in that aspect.
So you've got a great cast, as you say. So shout out to the cast, and obviously the creatives and the production crew even, because unless you've put on a production, you have no idea how much work goes in.
There's a huge amount of work, but we are always so blessed. We've got such a good, talented team working together. Props, lighting, set, sound, the stage management side, and while we are, we don't do this to make money for ourselves. We don't get paid for it, but we work to a professional standard. So we are aim to be. This is not village hall amateur. This is quality stuff.
And it's quite interesting because, like Steve was saying earlier, that we started rehearsals in February. This started way before February. There is so much that goes into it. There's so much planning and preparation, way before even we cast.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. So how do we find out about getting tickets and websites, etc.?
Okay, so you can book tickets directly through the Stantonbury Theatre website. You can find Stantonbury Theatre. But the easiest way to go is to go to our website, because it's easier for me to say, which is www.mktoc, which stands for Milton Keynes Theatre of Comedy.co.uk, and on there we've got the links. We've got everything about the show. We've got lots of marketing and publicity fun stuff, but we've also got the links directly to the Stantonbury box office. It's running from the Tuesday the 29th of April through to the Saturday the 3rd of May. We've got evening performances every day at 7:30, and we've also got a 2:30 matinee on the Saturday as well. So lots of opportunities to come and see it. There is no excuse.
Absolutely, there is no excuse. And as someone who's been to probably the majority of your productions over the last 15, 20 years maybe. I can honestly say, and I'm not saying it because Emma and Steve are here, I love what you do, and there is nothing about amateurish about what you do. It feels very professional. There is not a modicum of village hall, not a sniff of village hall ishness about it. It's really professional, it's funny, it's clever, it's witty, it's very, I love the fact to say you're using local talent, and there is so much talent in Milton Keynes right on our doorstep.
Yep.
We're so lucky.
Yeah, and and I like to think that we give as professional a show as possible for a really, really good price. If you compare it to what you're going to spend if you go to London, I think you'll get just as good for a snip of the price.
So just on the price, that's a good link.
Good shout.
So £18 adult ticket and £16 concessions, and the first performance, the Tuesday the 29th, all tickets are concession prices if you want to come on the first night.
That's amazing. As you quite rightly say, Emma, I mean, theatre is so expensive and can end up being sort of, almost quite elitist, because you almost have to sell a kidney to see a London production now, which is crazy. So we have, this is easily affordable.
Save your train fare.
And all seats are the same price as well. You don't have to spend £100 to sit on the front row.
That's so annoying, the hierarchy of the seats. But let's not even go there. The most important thing is we get bums on seats. People come and see this amazing production of the Brittas Empire. Emma and Steve, it's been absolutely amazing you having me on my show, and we'll definitely get you back to talk about Whose Turn Is It Anyway near October.
And
that's
our Christmas show
Christmas.
as well.
Let's not mention a C word. It's too far away, too soon. Yeah. Let's just do Easter, please.
That's fine.
So thank you for listening to the Nancy Stevens Laughter Show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've loved standing up throughout this show. Actually, I think standing is the new sitting, and I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to be doing my shows from now on. As I say, always a pleasure. If you want to contact me as a guest, you can contact me on Instagram _NancyMK_. Drop me a DM if you'd like to be a guest, if you know someone who'll be witty and entertaining. And next week I have a chocolatier on my show called Linny Lane, and my mouth is already watering. So thank you so much for listening to the Nancy Stevens Lifestyle Show. Have an amazing day.